something I've witnessed where like a player will like half know a card, but not like its full text. Maybe they don't know like a kind of specific interaction with it, and they'll just assume they know what the card does, and then it just bites them in the bullet, or it just like they just like completely bites them.
Welcome back to the Hive Mind Podcast. Today we're talking about representation in Magic. I am your host, Wayneright. I'm joined by Michael from TheMegaMagikarp and our special guest, Looter Scooter. Looter, do you want to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is Looter Scooter. I am a trans woman on the internet. I host the On an Adventure podcast, which is a show where I talk to various content creators. Usually we don't talk about magic. We like to talk about other hobbies that we have, mental health, general life things, food, pets, and just to kind of learn more about the creator, who they are as a person, and what they do outside of magic. Occasionally we also talk about magic because that's a shared interest. That's, why I have them on the show, is because we're both familiar with magic, but for the most part, we do like to talk about non-magic topics, and that's mainly what I do. I occasionally guest on various Commander streams and other shows like this. But yeah, my main way of content is the On an Adventure podcast.
Perfect, and we'll have links to those and all your socials in the show notes or the description, depending on where you're watching this, so you can check that out. That's obviously one of the reasons we're talking about representation in Magic, is because this is a very inclusive place, and we're talking about basically everything that's not included in the boys club. So we're talking about women, we're talking about trans people, we're talking about people in the LGBTQ plus community and how they fit into the community and how we can make them more welcome here.
Yeah, it's a topic I'm very passionate about. I started playing Magic before I came out. I started playing in 2014, and I came out in 2017, and seeing how I'm treated differently before and after I came out is interesting, and just like trying to make it a more inclusive space for other people is very important to me.
Yeah, seeing how that's a very unique experience for you. You are uniquely qualified to talk about this topic. Do you want to talk about like going to the LGS? What was maybe the biggest difference you had after transitioning?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is when I first started playing Magic, I was 13 at the time, and I was going to the LGS, and I was like treated differently because like I was a kid in the LGS, and everyone else in the LGS was like college kids, quote unquote kids. I can call them kids now because I'm older than college kids now. So sure, it was mostly college people, college age guys, and so it was like, oh, this person's like new to the game, and like both new to Magic, kind of new to like the LGS experience, and also like very young, and so they kind of like tried to take up like a kind of like older mentor type figure to me, and tried to be like, like they would also like they would also like help me with my homework sometimes. It was very funny. I would like walk into my LTS. They would ask me about school and stuff, and they'd be like, yeah, I have to study for this test, this math test on that I have on Monday, and they'd be like, oh, what's it? What what's subject? And I'd like tell them, and they'd help me with like some of my school stuff, but I was mostly treated as like an older, or I was treated like as a younger kid, but like definitely like was like one of like I was like definitely like in the club, like I was like one of the boys, so to speak, and I felt very welcome there despite like the age difference. And then when I came out, I was 15, and I was going to a different LGS. I had moved, or I hadn't moved. I just decided to go to a different LGS, and I was also like very welcome there. And when I came out, I was pretty much treated like the same because they'd all knew me for the past 3 years. It was just like, oh yeah, you're not like a different person. Like you're just like you're still like the same cool person who's been having fun, hanging out at this LGS. There's no reason to treat you any different just because just because we see you as a girl. And it's like I specifically remember one of my friends, Josh, he was like on vacation for like the entire summer after I came out, and so he came back to the store like probably like 4 or 5 months after I came out, and he went up to me, and I was like, "Oh, I go by Maria now," and he goes, "Oh, I see things have changed. I see things have changed now. Nice to meet you, Maria." And he was just like super chill about it. And you know, he was one of my good friends at the LGS before I came out. You know, still, I haven't seen him in a while because he moved to a different town. But you know, he's, you know, anytime he is in town, I usually hang out with him. But yeah, I was kind of treated mostly the same before and after. The thing that like really I've really noticed was how people treat women that they don't know in the magic space. Because like for me it's like, oh, you know, I've already known this girl for a while, and so I'm just gonna like treat her the same way, because like obviously if I treat her different, then like she's gonna think I'm an asshole and not want to like come here anymore, and I don't want that. But it's like, you know, some guys would like make comments that like they don't like realize is problematic or like offensive or like off-putting, but like it is. Just like things that like pretending that every woman is like new to magic, like always like being like kind of like always like they like play a card and they would just like always like hand it to their opponent just like they could read it, which they wouldn't do to all the other guys. Because like, if you're a guy playing, I just assume you know all the cards in this format. But if you're a woman and I haven't seen you at this LGS before, you know, maybe you're new to Magic, so like I'm gonna like be courteous and let you read this card. But it's like why do you think I'm new to Magic just because I'm a woman, you haven't seen me before? Like I'm playing Modern. Like you think I'm like I'm new to playing Magic if I'm playing Modern? like what do you mean? Like if I'm playing like in my first pre-release and you hadn't seen me, yeah, sure, I believe it. Though honestly, at pre-release, people just like always hand their opponents their cards because everyone's seeing the cards for the first time at pre-release. But like things like that, where it's just like you think it's like innocent, and you're trying to be helpful, but it's just kind of like off-putting and a little bit demeaning.
You have to remember when we're talking about this subject too, for the listeners, this is stuff that people like me especially need to English, I swear. This language is stupid. I don't even know how to speak another one, and I always flub it. For anyone listening right now, this stuff that she's talking about, that's directed towards people like me. And not to say like I'm especially guilty of this sort of thing, or that I'm especially innocent. I haven't done those things. I am like the token white guy who plays Magic in like the most stereotypical sense. Straight cis white guy. This is the kind of thing that you need to take into consideration when she's speaking, not because the fact that you individually may have been the person who caused this sort of thing to occur, but because the fact that mathematically speaking, you're the most likely person to have done these things, and this is the kind of thing you really need to pay attention to, because the intentionality of what you may be doing, even if it is well-intentioned, does have the consequences of potentially being off-putting. Obviously on the subject matters of like, if you're just being blatantly like, are you sure that's a woman? Like that you can get out of here with that, but it's the more minutia, the intricacies of this sort of thing that really need to be paid attention to with these sort of things.
Yeah. And like the thing that is hard is it's easy for me to like say these things, right? And for like, you know, one of my, you know, guy friends to be like, yeah, I don't do that. And it's like, yes, you don't. But you should also like call it out when someone else is doing it. Because if you don't, then that just means you're cool with like stuff like this. And if a woman like goes to an LGS and like someone talks down to her or whatever, and no one calls it out, she's just gonna assume that like that type of culture is normal. That's just normal to talk down to women at an LGS. Whereas if someone calls it out and it's like, hey, that's not cool, then it's like, then she's like, oh, okay, this is not normal. This is like one guy kind of being a dickhead. But like that behavior is not cool, and that like the culture of that story is like trying to promote inclusivity rather than like keep people out.
So it's definitely in the details kind of ones, like the example you provided of showing the cards to someone assuming that they're newer to it. Like Commander is like the only place that I could maybe see you could like even possibly kind of have an argument about that being the thing, because like I couldn't tell you the new 6 mana like gift an extra turn spell, what that does off the top of my head. Like I don't know what that does. Like I just know it's like very silly and it gives somebody a whole extra turn, but I'm gonna need to read that again because I have no idea what's going on. But like we're talking about like we're trying to go in place at a LCQ or something. Like I already know how your Is It to Murktide deck is working. I don't need you to go and show me what this is just because the fact that I'm presenting is something other than like a straight white guy. Like come on, that's uncalled for.
Yeah. Like like I said, at Commander, it's like there's like 25,000 cards in Commander that people could play. Like something's gonna be wacky that like no one's heard of, and you're just be like, I'm gonna cast this card here, y'all can read it. We're at pre-release again, where like none of us like. Yes, sure, some people like have like read the spoiler season in and out, but some people just like are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna open these cards for the first time and I'm just gonna find out what they do.
But if it's Solemn Simulacrum though, I mean, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, sure. But like in like other formats in Modern, it's like if I don't know what a card is, I'm just gonna be like, can I read them? Like I don't need you to hand me what Ragavan does when you cast Ragavan. I know what Ragavan does already, but like if I didn't, I would just be like, can I read the card? And they would hand it to me. Like you don't have to hand it to me preemptively because you think I don't know what Ragavan does.
It's usually pretty obvious when someone doesn't know, common Magic cards. It's very rude to just kind of jump to the assumption and start mansplaining immediately.
Right. And like if they don't know, they're gonna ask. Like it's like the number of times I've seen people like the number of times I've seen a woman not know what a card does and not ask what the card does is like none. But ironically, the number of times I've seen guys play and they half know a card but don't fully know a card, they don't ask their opponent. And I don't know why. This is like something I've witnessed where like a player will like half know a card, but not like its full text. Maybe they don't know like a kind of specific interaction with it, and they'll just assume they know what the card does, and then it just bites them in the bullet, or it just like completely bites them, and then I'll go up to them and be like, why'd you do that? They're like, oh, I thought this card did this. I'm like, why didn't you read the card? It's sitting in their opponent. You could have just asked them. They're like, I didn't want to look like an idiot. I'm like, your opponent's not going to think you're an idiot if you don't know what every card does off the top of your head.
The number of times I've gotten blown out by Reach and Death Touch because they just didn't see it on the card.
Oh my god, yep. Yeah, Secret Reach is the most broken keyword ever.
Especially with the ones they printed on the bottom of the card for some reason.
Yeah, or on creatures that don't look like they should have Reach, like Gemrazor and Elder Gargaroth.
Funny you mentioned a couple beasts in a row, because man, I am waiting for the opportunity to blow people out with those in my most recent brew, and something tells me there's a non-zero chance of that occurring because of what exactly you mentioned.
Yeah. Yep, yeah, people are gonna forget some words on the card, and they're gonna try and play it off like they know what the full card does. So I guess if the beyond like the inclusivity lessons, this is a lesson. If you don't know what card does, just ask your opponent. Just be like, can I see that card?
Are you really going to attempt to go and pull off some sort of like macho bravado type stuff in a card game that has been stereotypically the most nerdy thing to exist since 1994?
Yeah, like what are you proving by thinking? What are you trying to prove by acting like you know what every card does? But like asking your opponent what their cards do is like somehow makes you less smart of a Magic player. Like it's silly.
Right, or acting like you're, big guy because you know what the cards do and you need to explain it to everybody. I do encourage people to like read out their cards when they play them, just as a general habit, just so everybody knows. Especially when you get into like multiplayer and there's multiple people who have to know. But that's like very specifically not directed. Like you're not choosing a person and saying you look like you don't know what you're doing, and it's probably because of XYZ. Like that's just very rude.
I mean, joke's on them. I never know what I'm doing, so just explain every card to me, because I'm got 3 brain cells, and 2 of them are over there just trying to go figure out how to turn on the TV. Oh, it is on.
It's funny you mention that, because the way my brain works, if someone's reading a card, like the card's text to me, it is just in one ear out the other. Like I just cannot process that. I need to like pick up the card and read the words on the card. So anytime someone's like, I'm gonna cast this spell that's like, you know, from like an old set, or maybe from like a Doctor Who set or whatever, like a card that like not everyone knows, they're gonna like start reading off the cards. I will literally stop and be like, hey, can you not read the card? I want to read the card silently, please, because this helps me know what the card does better. Or I will just like purposely like blank out what they say and then read it later, because we're playing on spell table and I could just like click on the card and read it at my own leisure.
Great accessibility feature, by the way.
Write a college dissertation on the amount of text on Questing Beast, for crying out loud, for reading it out loud to me. I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah, Questing Beast, more like Texting Beast.
Oh, I have to add some sound effects in post now.
I gave you the silence right there for you.
Yeah, will it be crickets or will it be a womp womp? We'll find out.
Give me an applause. Give me a slow clap. I request a slow clap for that one.
I'm gonna go and put in the request for the little jingle that played during Chem Possible episodes, but that's just me.
I was thinking fade in like the entire Emmys, maybe.
Oh, okay.
You know, the audio processing is very real. Like that's. If you ask me what any Universes Beyond card does, I will not tell you. I do not know what it does. I need to look at the card.
Yeah.
Hilariously, I actually have those relatively well down for like half of them, and then the other ones I'm like, Doctor who exactly? No.
Yeah.
Who? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, Assassin's Creed cards, I know most of them pretty well, actually, and I don't even care for Assassin's Creed. I just saw a lot of cards I like from the set, but I could actually open packs of that. That's part of the thing for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had a relatively welcome experience at your LGS, because I think that's like the number one thing that I harp on people for, is kind of being, you know, stereotypical mansplaining kind of experience, or hitting on the women that come into your LGS because it's, you know, a rarity for them. Is like you really want to make that environment very welcoming, and like every place is welcoming if you're a cis white man. So you can go wherever you want, and you don't have to feel like anything could possibly go wrong for you. So you really don't want people's first experience, or even just the first experience in your specific store, to be, I walk in the door, I'm immediately harassed, or assumed to be stupid, or assumed to be jumping on, you know, a trend, and I'm not actually there to participate in the hobby on an equal footing.
Yeah, I have seen a non-zero amount of people with like give an example, a band shirt or something, like, oh, are you even a real fan? What are their best songs? I'm over here like I had one of these necklaces. It's over in my collection still, I think, of the wolf head from The Witcher. And don't get me wrong, I love the aesthetic of it, but I've played like an hour of Witcher 3, and I've seen like the first 3 episodes of the show, and like that's about it. So if you were talking to me about like the Blood and Wine DLC or whatever the heck it was called, I'm like, and no one's going to call me out for that. No one's even going to think. They're going to assume that I'm already on top of that sort of thing. I'm just jealous of Geralt's voice. Like, if I could just go and customize my voice like a slider, I would go and take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
Imagine not being jealous of those abs.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll just need to pick up my cat a few more times. I'll get there in no time.
The temptation to lift my model up and show you the abs on this model.
I had, like, as a kid, I listened, like, on the band thing. As a kid, I listened to a lot of rock bands, because that's what my dad grew up like. like Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Who, etc. And I also grew up playing guitar because my dad, he played guitar. He taught me how to play guitar. And on one day I was wearing I think it was a Led Zeppelin shirt. Or it was a Led Zeppelin shirt. I don't remember like which. It was for one of their albums. And this is before it came out. I'm just like a little kid, wearing this shirt, and some dude asked me, he was like, "Do you even play guitar?" I go, "Bitch, I can play the entirety of Stairway to Heaven. Like, get out of here."
So quick to assume.
I'm just like, dude, I can like. First of all, you don't have to play guitar to enjoy music. Like, that's dumb. Second, like, even if you do know how to play guitar, like, just because you enjoy listening to a song doesn't mean you're going to enjoy practicing it or playing it. And third, Led Zeppelin songs are kind of hard to play.
Yes, because this is especially a thing with metal guys for whatever reason. It's just like, yes, here, let me go and show you exactly how hard it is to go and play this right here.
Yeah.
Come on, stop. If you're listening to this, it's literally just, you don't even need to put your hand on the guitar on the fretting side whatsoever for this. Like, yes, thank you, Mick Gordon. I really appreciate all the open zeros altogether. Thank you.
Yeah.
At least someone thinks I'm funny. Unlike someone.
The thing, like, I would always say is be like, oh, if you know how to play, like, my counterpoint is always, oh, if you really think you know too much about Led Zeppelin, what's the hardest part to play in Stairway to Heaven? And they go, oh, it's the guitar solo. Easy. I go, nope, incorrect. That's the incorrect answer. That is not the hardest part to play in Stairway to Heaven. I'm
not savvy with guitar or anything at all, so I could not tell you.
Yeah.
I'm actually just not very on top of, Led Zeppelin, because I just joked about it, but I am one of the people that makes fun of the musician guys, because, like, I am very much a fan of that genre. But it's like,
sure,
don't be. I'm just gonna go borrow a very pertinent phrase from one person who is in that sphere. He had an entire song dedicated to this, and the title of the song is literally just "Don't be a dick."
Yeah,
that's literally it. Just don't.
That is what it all boils down to. Is basically just treat people nice. Just have respect for people regardless of anything. Like, until somebody shows you that they're a dickhead, you just treat them like another human being. I don't know why it's so hard.
Yeah, if you wouldn't say something to a guy, why do you think it's okay if you say it to a girl? Is kind of is a pretty good lesson to apply. And the answer in 99% of cases is it's not okay. So you shouldn't say it.
Yeah, the bias is just kind of like immediately there, and I don't know why people will start talking and just not hear themselves, like a real lack of self-awareness to just kind of jump into that conversation and make themselves look like a fool. And, like you said, if somebody doesn't call them out, it just kind of reinforces that behavior. So that's something that, generally speaking, if you're in a situation, a social situation, or if you're in LGS or anywhere, this applies to everything. We're talking through the lens of magic here, but anywhere you hear somebody talking down to somebody or treating them as less of a human than any other person, you need to jump in there and make them feel like they're the asshole, because they are. And you need to make sure that you're not reinforcing that stereotype by remaining silent and confirming to them that that's not something that is going to get punished by society.
Unless you put pineapple on pizza, then all of that stuff goes out the window.
Don't even start with me. Hawaiian with jalapenos is the best pizza ever made.
Get out of my house! Get out!
Not even in your house.
Remove him from my house.
Yeah. The other, like, kind of wild thing is guys who say things like that often don't realize what they're doing is wrong until someone points it out to them. And that's, like, something that concerns me a little more than, like, them doing it. Because if, like, someone, like, makes a demeaning comment and knows they're making a demeaning comment, like, they're just, right? It's just like, oh yeah, that person's an asshole. But if someone makes, like, a comment that they genuinely think is innocent to make, but is, like pretty demeaning and insulting, it's like, okay, so you were like raised to believe that that's okay, and that's like concerning because that's to a lot of people. Like you're definitely not the only person who thinks that comment is innocent, and that's just like that just scares me. It's just like things like that. It's like, man, this society like is fucked.
Yeah, this brazen audacity, and that's the thing too. It's like you can't really do anything about people who are just going to be assholes that are doing these kind of things on purpose. It's more like where people don't realize it, where they're doing like microaggressions and things like that. That's where you have like the opportunity to step in and educate them or give them some perspective or tell them like, hey man, this is how this makes me feel, or this is how this other person is feeling when you do that, and they can actually turn around. But people who are assholes, there's not much you can really do about it besides, let the people around you know. And if you're I should hope if you're like at an LGS, for example, that the owner would say, get out of my store. We're lucky enough to have a store owner. Shout out Chad at Games and More over in Rochester. But he would 100% if somebody was getting insulted like that in any capacity, any amount of disrespect when it comes to their lifestyle or their gender or whatever it is, they're out. Like, we just don't do that here. Obviously there's some room for context, but there's no good context for just like talking down to someone and treating them like less of a human being, or treating them like they don't belong in the LGS with you as an equal.
And there's even been some weird circumstance that I don't even know to this day how to handle. Like, when I've never seen him do this in person, but I have a friend of mine, he's Lao, and he will unironically, I think, make really terrible anti-Asian jokes while being very Asian. And like joking about eating my cat. And just like, if he were to do that in person, I don't know what to do. So there are a lot of weird corner cases in those sort of things, but like in general, just like there's a time and place for everything, and this is not it. That's the kind of thing most people just have to know. That's
the one meme of like when you accidentally use personality A with friend group B. It's like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like I've like made a bunch of like trans jokes or like queer jokes around my cis friends, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "Oh God, I have to explain this to you now." And I'm just like, I regret all my life choices.
I've been in that exact situation a non-zero number of times, but I have like at least 3 friend groups I can think of where I'm like the only straight guy in the entire group. So it's like I've kind of gotten used to it. But I can definitely see how that would be a little bit awkward. Oh, hi! Now you want to show up?
Well, it's for me. It's like when I'm used to hang out with my queer friends, and then I hang out with my like exclusively straight friends, and then I make one. It's like I'm just like, okay, so either I have to explain this joke, and you get to learn a lot about me that you probably didn't want to know, or I just tell you to don't worry about it, and that's not a satisfying answer. If I just made a joke I think is funny and I tell you not to worry about it, that's not a satisfying answer if you're on the receiving end of that.
Yeah,
that's one of those just context matters for that kind of thing. It's like, the main thing is that nobody's getting hurt. Like in private company with people who understand and like not whose feelings will not be hurt by it. You kind of have the right to parody there. But that's not like an excuse. That's where you understand the situation. You have some social awareness. You know who's around you, and that nobody's going to get hurt by it.
Yeah.
This is a hard one to segue.
I'm just staring at Michael's cat. It's a good kitty.
He's very heavy. He is like part Maine Coon or Norwegian Forest Cat or something, so he's like 20 pounds.
Oh my God.
He's a big boy.
Wow, mine's just a fat ass.
He's never been this still at my computer desk before.
He's doing a wonder.
He's experiencing everything. He's like, what is happening? I'm taking everything.
He's intercepted the brain cell.
Yep. You want to say hi? No?
My cat is very talkative. He will definitely talk into the mic if he were around.
Come on.
I unfortunately do not have any cats anymore. I am petless.
I am houseless, so as soon as my cat is out of the picture, I will not be getting another one until I can find a house. The market is terrible right now.
I'm just very glad that he's an emotional support animal, technically, so I don't have to worry about anything like that.
So some of these topics we're talking about, too, a lot of people who are maybe just getting into the Magic scene or have only been in it a few years, this is not like a new thing that women are a big part of Magic. In fact, one of the oldest parts of Magic that I got introduced to a woman that I really respect was Melissa the Torah, who was a professional Magic player and now actually works on the design team. And so keep that in mind, is that women have been part of Magic for a long time now. This isn't something new. I know that like the culture has changed a lot in the last 5-10 years, but women have always been a pivotal part of Magic. Not always on the front page of it. You see a lot of the whose name am I forgetting now? I'm so bad at remembering names. Noseworthy? Is that who I'm thinking of?
That's an ex-Bungie dev.
Isn't there somebody else with that name that was worked on Magic?
You're thinking of Rosewater?
I think that might be it.
Bro, confusing Mark Roseworthy.
Look, I'm tired, alright? It was a long day of work.
Yeah, both of them I think of Mark as their first name. Mark Noseworthy and Mark Rosewater, yeah.
That's probably where the mix-up happened in the brain. But that's the kind of person you see when Magic news happens. Is you see Mark Rosewater and you see
Blake on the streams.
Yeah, Blake Rasmussen, Gavin Verhey.
Yeah, Gavin's the other one you see all the time, and nothing against Gavin. I love Gavin, but he's also been
one of the more vocal champions of diversity as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love having him as a face of the team. I would also love to see more of the women on that side of the team. In fact, speaking of Bungie, we recently got the former narrative director for Bungie, I believe, for Magic is now working for Bungie.
Oh, so, yeah, I am such a big fan of her work. This is Allison Lures. She was the person behind... Oh. Yeah, she's the one behind a lot of the work on Ixalan's writing, the very well-loved Ixalan stuff with Jason Frosca, and now she's over on Bungie's side, and my god, the work that she's done already has been phenomenal, and I really do expect her to go and take the very Jason Frasca relationship of Eris and the Drifter forward into the future, because, man, I am so looking forward to seeing what she does with them. He always does such good work. But wrapping back around to something we already mentioned, I do gotta say, we already have had some instances of Melissa DeTora on a couple of different things. She's been on a couple episodes of Game Nights, which is, obviously extremely popular. She has even been on Gavin Verhey's podcast, which I don't know if he's uploaded recently. It's been a little bit. I've stopped using Spotify, so that's where I would normally get those notifications. But he had a whole design talk with her about Commander 2017 and how that whole kind of thing, that whole shebang shaked out. A couple other episodes too, I believe, and yeah, she's very much one of the top people on that side. She also was working with teams working on Limited for some sets as well, and they were talking about that when they were having those discussions. And also, I gotta know her skincare routine. When I heard that she was like in her 40s, like, oh, what are you doing? Where do I get that stuff? Where's this fountain of youth you've gone to, Melissa? I need whatever you got.
You know what? I can't even make a joke about that. She does look great. Growing up, when I first got into Magic and I first saw Melissa on like the Pro Tour, I had the biggest crush, for sure. Obviously, like, someone who's into Magic is like ideal, but I was just so impressed. I had just so much respect, and that never really stops. It's just she continues to do great things. You can't really beat her. It's just such a bastion of the community, and she's a good one to point out as someone who's like a big part of the process of making Magic. But there's women in pretty much every part of Magic that contribute a lot to the space. Obviously, we see a lot in the content creator space. Pretty much all of Birds of Paradise, I think. At least all the ones I know are women.
I mean, we've also had.
I believe that is correct. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've also had some other people in front-facing positions. Like back when she was with Wizards of the Coast, Mel Lee was in a lot of positions where she was able to like show off the stuff that she was doing, like with the world building of Amonkhet, for example. So the more times that I think that we can have front-facing people in those positions where they feel comfortable to do so, because let's be honest, the internet can be, how do I put this nicely, a cesspool. The more women that we can put in positions where they both can be an empowering part of the game, but also not necessarily feel as though they feel pressured into it because of how rough it can be on the internet, I think the better. It takes a very specific type of personality for you to be able to go out and face the internet in such a way to where you're so front facing, especially if you're not someone who looks like me.
Right. Yeah, especially if like you're working at Wizard, because it's if you're like just a content creator, writer, or a pro player, and it's like you'll get like shit on by internet randos because
look at that misplay.
Like oh yeah, you missed this line or whatever, like But if like
punting is
it's
asexual.
a lot different if you're It's a lot different if you're just like playing the game, or like if you're playing the game than if you're like making the game. Because like when you're making the game, it's like, oh, okay, like if this card's broken, I can just like point at you and be like, this is your fault, even if you didn't design the card. Like like people can do that because like they worked on the team. They just assume, oh yeah, if everyone works at Wizards says that like Nadu's okay, then like fuck them or whatever. But like when that's just not how designing cards works, like that's just like it's like they're just on different design teams and they're not like responsible for every mistake that happens. Like I read Mark Rosewater's blog a lot, and a lot of people will complain to him about things that Mark is not in charge for, because they're just like, I just need to complain, and I need someone at Wizards to hear me, and you are the only person I know to contact that can give this feedback to Wizards. Because he's such like a front-facing, prolific person. And I just imagine like if like Melissa DeTora ran like a similar blog, she would get so many more just like hate comments like that.
I do believe that there would be some amount of like a reach disparity just because like people have known Mark for so long. So even if Melissa had started a blog of a similar nature, even back when she first like was introduced to a lot more of the casual players back in like say 2017 or 2018 whenever she was first on game nights, and like there would probably been like a disparity just because like people know Mark from like decades of doing this and like he's known to be the guy, and she she's a pro player and she's very good, but I just think that purely because like when you think Magic staff you probably think Rosewater and Verhey, like there would be that discrepancy, but even that out of the picture, just I remember very like in one of those episodes with Gavin where she was on, she was working with a lot of the teams that were involved with the production of the Brawl precons back in the first Eldraine. And even just saying that sentence, just putting that in on its own, you could imagine some people on a certain website that starts with R and ends with edit will go and have themselves a field day going and being like, oh, this is why we have to deal with Corfold, this is why we have to deal with Chulan, this is why we have to deal with yada yada yada, this is why Arcane Signet was put in, she would want to make money for Wizard.
Yeah.
Don't give me that. they wanted to go and make arcane signet so that they could have reasonable mana fixing in a format that didn't want to be able to put 2 mana ramp in a format that was already going to be as powerful as it was. Like, do you really think that a format that was going to include Gilded Goose and Once Upon a Time, even though they didn't know how busted Oka was going to be at the time, like, Gilded Goose and Once Upon a Time were definitely, like, on their radar for, like, good cards. Like, they made them to be good.
Yeah.
They didn't want to also put in just, like, a free 2 mana ramp thing for standard. So, like, they made Arcane Signet as their solution, so it'd technically be standard legal, but you couldn't reasonably play it in a standard deck, and,
yeah,
you know, they missed the mark. They mentioned as much, but if you had Melissa on a thing like that, where she was, like, going, like, yeah, we were working on this thing, and yada, people would lose their minds at them. Instead, they just kind of generally pointed it at Wizards, because that said blog doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But we know where it would have been filtered if that did exist.
Right.
Yeah, the
this
point
is a tangent. This is gonna be a total tangent, because you mentioned Once Upon a Time being that they knew Once Upon a Time was powerful, but they didn't realize how powerful it was. Someone made a statement. I don't remember who it was. It might have been from when Once Upon a Time got banned in Standard. It might have been like someone asked Mark Rosewater on his blog, something like that. But Wizards specifically said we wanted every game to start. We wanted every game with Once Upon a Time in it to start with Once Upon a Time, because that's such a flavor win. If, like, the game starts with Once Upon a Time, and then they didn't stop to think that, like, how that's a very problematic thing. That's, like, too good of an effect to start the game with.
This is also right before they released. This is like a year, I think, before they released Companion, though. So
Yeah.
the idea of repetitive game actions and having similar deck building styles in the same deck, same game actions that you can take regardless of circumstance in the game itself was not really something that they necessarily were on their radars when they were doing that sort of thing. So
Right. Yeah. It just made it funny that they were like they focused too much on the flavor win of the card and not realizing how powerful of an effect it is when that's the first play of the game.
right. Magic design is hard.
Magic design is hard. I don't know anything about it beyond reading Mark's blog and listening to his podcast. That's all the magic design I know about. They're way more qualified to do this than anyone on Twitter or Reddit or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I'm pretty sure everyone
they're
on
human,
Reddit
so they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, everyone on Reddit considers themselves an expert, so...
See, unlike them, I'm actually an expert. I got my degree in bullshitology back in 2019. I can actually go and BS my way through anything given enough charisma, which I'm surprisingly lacking in. But I'll work on it. But yeah, Once Upon a Time, going back to that example, it's only... The flavor win is so strong, though. It's only banned in Pioneer, Modern, Explorer, and Historic. Well, I mean, Pioneer and Explorer are the same thing, but still.
And in Standard format.
Yeah, it was banned in Standard when it was legal in there.
Right, yeah.
I don't know enough about Legacy or Vintage to be able to say, like, if they play that card, and if they don't, why, but I'm sure someone out there knows better than I do.
I do, but that's a tangent for another time. Back to like women content creators and prolific faces of the community. Good Luck High Five was one of the first shows I got into when I started playing Magic and was like looking for content. It's a podcast hosted by what are their names? I feel so embarrassed right now.
I'm so embarrassed right now. I'm Michael.
God. It is.
No.
It is Megan and Maria. Yeah, they're great. Their energy was just like completely like electrifying when I was like, wow, these two people are so much fun to listen to, and they're great. They're funny. and yeah, they just like really like when it inspired me when I first started playing. I was like, oh wow, women do cool things in Magic, even if it's not exclusively being like great at Magic. And now Maria does commentary for Wizards, and she's great at it. She was also doing commentary for Wizards back then.
I love the pipeline of content creator to working literally for Wizards. And we see it more and more these days.
Yeah, or a pro player to working at Wizards.
Actually, MTG Nerd Girl was someone I used to watch back in the day, and now she's huge. She is so huge. She's going to be, I believe, at Command Fest hosting the Creator Clash. And that's crazy to me because I still remember watching as a small creator, just, you know, and just doing like little things like streaming Arena. But it seems little to me, but like that's really important for her to be doing that and being an example of someone that can be in the space. I think it's really important that women can look up to her and say like, I belong here. Like this is a successful woman in the space. Like this is a realistic thing. This is a common enough thing that I'm not gonna be harassed as much if I, you know, find the right people in this space. Obviously, harassment follows anywhere for anybody that's you know, one of these marginalized people. But it's something where we want, you know, people to be in this. We want everyone to be part of Magic because we all love it so much. So having representation of all kinds of people is really important, from, you know, the small little things, and, you know, people just making skits, and people who end up hosting events, and people end up working for Wizards and actually designing the cards. Having people at every step of that process, you know, covering this wide band of people is really important for making everyone feel like they belong in Magic, because they do.
Yeah. And I think like streaming especially is really nice because every streamer just has their nice like cozy little community of like, you know, regular chatters, and it's just like feels like, oh, I'm just like hanging out in a room with like, you know, a bunch of other cool people, just watching this one person play. Like when I started watching a bunch of streams in like late 2019, or like, yeah, in like late 2019, I watched a lot of Voxy, Bloody, and Nessa Meow Meow were like 3 streamers I watched a lot, and they were just like great vibes, great people, and just like had like really nice welcoming communities that were kind of upheld and like flourished because the streamers themselves are, you know, really nice and welcoming to people of all backgrounds.
I didn't see on our notes here, but one I definitely think should be pointed out, for a multitude of reasons, is probably Olivia Gobert Hicks. Like,
oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, love her too.
Yep, her and
yeah. I actually had a little bit of oops, because I kept on seeing her and Brian Kibler in photos together. It's like, and I knew that they were married, but I didn't know they were married to each other. And so I was just like, oh wow, these guys are very good friends. I'm like, no, they're married. Like, I thought she was married to somebody else and he was married to somebody else. Like, no, I'm just dumb. I'm just an idiot.
Damn, so you're saying I don't have a chance with either of them?
Look, at this point, my best bet out of the two of them is getting in with Brian Kibler's Rith the Awakener copy back from like the late 90s. Like that's the best shot I got. Last I checked, Rith was a lady.
I have no idea. But speaking of Olivia, she, Christine Sprankle, and Tappy Toe Claws were the first people I ever saw do cosplay in Magic. And that's just like a whole world that I just did not think existed in Magic. When I started playing, I was just like, I was like, wait, people like just go to cons dressed as Magic characters? That's awesome! I was like, that's the coolest thing ever.
Who? Oh god, I'm trying to. My brain is not working right now. Who was? I know there was a cosplayer who is based out in somewhere in Europe. I'm sure you would know that based off of that one. I can't remember her name to save the life of me, though. I actually met her back in one of the Magic Cons a few years ago, and I am not braining right now. I want to say she was like... Brain, please, help me.
I could not tell you, like, where.
I cannot remember.
I actually got to know Zebex a little bit over Twitter.
Yep, I was gonna shout her out. Zebex is an absolute delight. She is so energetic.
Oh my god, I'm an idiot. It's literally just Nissa cosplay. God, I am very dumb.
Yes, Nissa.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, she was an absolute delight to go and hang out with in Seattle about a little over 4 years ago. This is right before pandemic hit, so yeah, 2019 Seattle events.
4 or 5 years ago, yeah.
Also known as about 2 decades ago, because those last 3 years basically just didn't exist. That was the longest decade of my life.
Pandemic is either like 2 days long or 2 decades long, depending on so many things. But yeah, other cosplayers, Zebex is great. Anna Margaret, I met through a mutual friend group. We were at MagicCon Vegas in 2020, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to get lunch with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And she was in that group, and I met her, and she's awesome person. Just really cool cosplays, and yeah, it's just great person. I think of other cosplayers I like. Olivia, Christine Sprankle, and Tappy Toe Claws definitely like introduced me to the world of cosplay, and that's just like one of the coolest things that you can do in this game that I haven't done is cosplay.
I'm convinced that there's no one who loves this game more than the cosplayers, because they are going to such great lengths for such short amounts of spotlight. But you can tell they really are passionate about the game. Not just like the gameplay, but the story and the lore, and like they really care about these characters. I actually was at a MagicCon where Zebex was at, and completely somehow missed her. Don't know how, but women especially are very good at cosplay.
Was this at Philly or Minneapolis when she was Vraska?
It was Minneapolis, yeah. And I saw her, but I actually legit did not recognize her. Because the cosplay was so good.
Her Vraska cosplay is like not recognizable as like her, unless like you know that that's her Vraska cosplay. It's incredible.
Yeah, I didn't like plan on meeting her there or anything, so like I didn't know that she was there. I just went because I'm a Minnesota resident, so I was already in the area. So that was like kind of a missed opportunity. Zebex, if you're ever around, I guess, let's get lunch sometime, because I would love to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I did talk to her about that cosplay, because I had her on my podcast, and she had like a month between like finding out that she was contracted to do Vraska. She like figured that she found that out like in like mid-December, and between that and MagicCon Philly, she had that time to get the Vraska cosplay together, which was like a month and a half, 2 months, which is insane. That like you can just do that in that short a time. Like that's like I would imagine like such a cosplay takes like 4 or 5 months to make, but no, she just made it in that little time, and that's insane.
Yeah, it definitely takes an incredible amount of skill. Like I can't even imagine even having the skill set.
She said amusingly she was like up until like 3 a.m. in her hotel room just finishing the last few touches before she had to be at the con the next day, and I'm just imagining that, and I'm like, yeah, I believe that. That is the most believable part of this story. Is like, yeah, you have, yeah, this definitely finished last minute, because finishing that like with like if you told me like, oh yeah, I got this done in a month and I had it done like a week before the con, I'd be like, are you serious? That's insane. But you're finishing last minute, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, definitely an area that I'm glad is actually dominated by women a little bit. Shout out to the men cosplayers as well, but man, the women are so good at it. There's definitely like a lot of passion, and that's why I'm glad there's like a lot of women characters in Magic as well, because it kind of lets you express that way. But you can also express as being a a woman with snakes for hair.
Or if you're Tappy Toe Claws, gender bent Oko, which is maybe my favorite cosplay she's done.
I do remember seeing that one.
She's most well known for doing Joyra, and her Joyra cosplay is great. I mean, all her cosplays are great, but I especially love her Oko. Is great.
I'm really struggling. I don't know if it's because I'm tired or if it's just like the way we're talking. I'm so bad with the segues today.
She's are hard. This is why on my podcast I have no show notes. I'm just like, yeah, we're just gonna talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours. There's no script, there's no show notes, there's no nothing. We just talk. Because segues, when you're like trying to force a segue to a specific topic, it's like, I'm like, this is impossible, dude.
Segues are hard. This is why you don't laugh at Paul Blart Mall Cop. He knows what he's doing. Every once in a while, I find someone who actually laughs at my jokes, and I'm like, oh god, am I actually funny, or do I just find someone who is willing to entertain the jokes for the sake of not making me feel bad?
I mean, you're telling dad jokes, and I do find dad jokes funny. And I don't know why. My dad didn't make dad jokes that much.
Neither did mine.
Like, yeah. But I do find them funny for some reason.
Can we talk briefly about how much I love Rebel? I don't know if she wants to go by Rebel Sun or Rebel Lily, but
yeah,
that was my like foray. That's how I got into CDH too. Was just Rebel was such an iconic person, and I just can't.
I think Rebel
thank her enough.
Yeah, I think Rebel is how a lot of people got into CDH. She's fantastic. Now she's doing like 60 card constructed content on like improving and like getting coaching done, and like publicizing like how she gets coaching from people. Like that's like that content like fascinates me, because like I watch a lot of like I watch a lot of like content creators who do like that style of video of like trying to be educational and like being like how to improve at Magic. Like Botch and Roll and Thraben are the two that immediately come to mind. But like the way Rebel does it with like her coaching, like she like just gets on someone to coach her, is like that's really cool, because then it's like, whereas like normally with like Brian Koval or Phil Gallagher, it's like, okay, this is like my thought process, I'm gonna explain like why I'm like making this line, but I don't know if it's like 100% correct. Whereas like Rebel is like, oh, she's like, I'm gonna make this play, and her coach is like, actually you should make this play because XYZ, and it's like, and she's like, oh, okay, that's a, you know, that I didn't think of that, and that's just like really cool to just like learn in the like to see just like her learning in the moment, because then it's also a bigger learning moment for you, the viewer.
Yeah, and this is also like recent content for her. Like this is like,
yes,
very much like what she's working on now, which is, you know, just leaps and bounds. And it hasn't been that long since the days of, you know, the 99 being on with Patrick Marlette that you know, we've come such a long way. And gosh, I just love the whole journey. I love watching people grow as creators, and you know, Rebel just being. She's also responsible for my entire timeline being trans, I'm pretty sure. Just because I've interacted with her so much. And, you know, my TikTok and everything, the slideshows and all that. You know, if you're on the same part of TikTok, you know exactly what I mean by that. But it's...
I'm not on TikTok at all. So I have no idea what you are talking about.
I love how I love how just poster child for playing Magic as a straight white guy, and you would think that I would be all about this sort of thing with the CEDH stuff, and by extension all the things you guys are talking about, but like, I'm over here playing 7-mana 4/4s. I have no idea what anything you guys are talking about as far as the CEDH stuff is concerned. I'm just over here like, let her go and do awesome stuff and be content creator people look up to in that sort of thing. It's like, good for her.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
I joke that CEDH is the format where all the trans girls play Magic, and that's like not true. There's a lot of trans women who play Magic. There's so many, and it's really funny. I don't know. I just yeah.
Yeah, very very common meme that's like majority of trans women play Magic. Funnily enough, actually, Oratart, who's a Magic judge, I believe she's still a Magic judge, was
yes,
someone I followed. Still Elaine. I followed her for quite a long time, and I just love her takes. I love her content. She's very funny. So is her wife. Just very funny people. And I don't know if this is like completely off base, but women judges and trans judges always seem like they're better. I don't know what it is, but they seem so much more compassionate, at least in my experience at like, you know, events and things like that. But I just feel so much more comfortable because they seem so much more compassionate and just wanting to help and being, you know, just a pillar of hosting events and that kind of thing.
Yeah. As someone who also is an L1 judge, I would probably, I don't know if I would agree with that. Well, I mean, I don't know if I would disagree with that, I guess, is a better way. But I don't know if I've had enough experience with, like, both sides of that to really say, make a kind of informed opinion on that. But that is interesting. That you find oh my god, words. It is interesting you think that way.
I might be biased against some of the other judges I've interacted with as well, just because like some of the men were just like much more willing to treat you like an amateur or that kind of thing, and they just kind of talk down to you a little bit, or they don't really listen to you and they just kind of issue a ruling. I haven't had a lot of judge interactions like in that sense because I tend not to to make you know, these kind of errors, I guess, that they call for a judge. Usually it's my opponent being the one that's being weird and doing things that I need a judge to come interact with them. But I don't know. Maybe I'm biased in that sense because I've only had worse interactions with men. But I don't know. It just seems like it's always worked out better when I've interacted with women, or at the very least trans people who you know generally are going to see more hate. I think are a little bit more compassionate sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, I might be completely off base. That's just like my personal experience. I could be completely objectively wrong on that.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't have enough experience both ways to really make an accurate statement one way or another. Like, I mean, I could say I'm biased because Jen at Jen the Judge is my girlfriend and they are the best. But like, you know, shout out to Jen. But you know, other than that.
I guess we like to think that judges are completely objective, but I think that...
No, oh god, no. We make mistakes just like anyone else. We're just human, man.
Yeah, I think that like the human component is really big when it comes to like solving conflicts. So that's where I'm at, is like my experiences where, the person, was listening to both sides and really trying to like understand what happened, trying to understand the context instead of just throwing out a ruling just to get done with the interaction. Regardless of who comes out on top of the interaction, which sounds like it's objective, but I think like not wanting to understand the situation kind of takes the human element out of it, and I think that it is important to give context to situations where you would need a judge.
Yeah.
God, I really hate not having my fan on. I feel like the white noise helps me think. But it does not sound good on the mic.
Yeah, I'm sure it does not.
I should have listened back to the previous recording just to hear what I said, because I feel like I'm forgetting things and like trying to remember the points I made, because I feel like it was a really good conversation, and I'm just like missing things. We also have been recording for an hour, so I guess that it's not like we haven't been talking about things. But
it's true.
I feel like we could talk for hours just like conversationally and not trying to make a point out of everything.
Yes, yeah. I could definitely talk about this for hours and hours on end.
I don't know. I mean, we hit all the notes, I think, besides like representation on game pieces, and I recall that we didn't really have anything to say about that besides the fact that we had like like women on cards, like specifically like Sisay and some of the newer characters, the Lord of the Rings set having some characters that were differently raced than it was originally imagined in the book. Kinnan being a little bit heavy set. Like I think like having characters on cards that people can relate to and feel, anything that makes people feel like they belong in the game is a good thing by my book.
Yeah, for sure.
I should have noticed that about Kinnan, considering the fact that every time I see Kinnan, I have to go hit it with a removal spell, but I'm surprised I didn't notice that before.
Yeah, Kinnan is very plus sized. But yeah, like seeing yourself, maybe not yourself, but like a character you relate to in a story or game or media or whatever is really important. Like I don't know if like anyone else can relate to this, but for me, a lot of my favorite characters growing up are just characters that if I were out and like able to like just freely live my life as a woman, I would like be like, yeah, this character would be my best friend, like 100%. This character would just like me and her would just be best buddies, like that. Those are all my favorite type of characters growing up in media, and like now that I am out and I just like look back at those characters, I'm like, yeah, we would be best buddies. We absolutely would just totally vibe with each other. Like, hell yeah. We're just like the same person, or like have like similar personalities and stuff like that. And being able to like see yourself in a character either through their personality or their background or their identity is really important, even if that character isn't like just like fully a copy of you.
I think for the people in the audience, if you are having trouble putting yourself in that position, like if you're, just a white guy and the majority of characters are already like you, imagine you find a commander that does literally everything you like. It's in the color combo you like, it has all the abilities you like, it has the gameplay patterns you like. Imagine it like that. Like imagine that's the situation. Like it's not just something you can play, it's like something you can relate to. It's something that's like, I want to be involved in this situation. I want to be playing around this character because they emphasize the things that I care about, and I feel like this is a place where I belong, as I want to be around this character.
And like to take that metaphor one step further, imagine like before that card got printed, there just was not any card that like did anything close to what you wanted to do. It's like, like there's like that effect maybe it was just like was half baked in that color and like just like didn't really exist. It like maybe existed in like other color combos, but like not the one you like playing, and things like that. But like, when it's like, oh, this is a card I can gravitate towards. That's like for the first time that like I'm really gravitating towards a card like this. Imagine that when it's like a character, and it's like I can connect to this character on a personal human level, as opposed to as a gameplay and like, fun level.
Yeah, I think that's a very apt comparison. And like, this is also true for people who are outside of the game currently. So, like, imagine a person wanting to come into Magic, or maybe, has been introduced to it, but they aren't quite convinced yet, and they just find the card that really, like, clicks for them. Like, they want to jump in because this excites them, this concept excites them. Like, and previously there was no other thing that drew them in. Like, having that catharsis and having that, feeling like you belong because this is a thing that you care about, that is exciting to you, that is, in parallel with how you feel, how your identity is. Like, that's a very, very powerful thing. And you want that all the time. You want people to feel like this game is where I belong. And that's like, and that's how society should be too. But that's like, in this context, like, we want people to jump into Magic and feel like they belong, and that there's gonna be a spot for them, that there's no wrong person to be in Magic. Like, everybody belongs here.
Right. I think you worded that very well. I think that like definitely made a lot of sense. Yeah.
A lot of this is like just feeling, and it's sometimes it's hard to put into words how feelings work. But at the end of the day, this is what we all want. We all want everybody to be involved. We want as many players as possible. We want everybody to feel like, I want to play Magic every day, and I want to play with my best friends, and I want those best friends to be everybody who walks up to the table.
Right. And it's also hard to put into words an experience that is like so natural to you, that like you're just so used to experiencing, and then putting into words that how that experience makes you feel to people who haven't experienced that thing is so hard. It is so hard to do that. And I'm like, I still don't know how to do it perfectly well. Because like a lot of sharing experiences is being like, yeah, I relate to that, or like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like that, that story makes me think of this story that's like slightly different, but like kind of like shares the same like things that makes your story like relatable. But it's like, if you share a story and then someone's like, I don't know how to think about that, and you're like, well, what do you mean? This is just how I've lived my life. What do you mean you don't understand what I'm going through? Like, this is all I've ever known in life is like this thing, and it's just putting experiences into words that others can't fully relate to is really hard. Is the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest struggle, is like, this conversation is kind of like an ode to people who are kind of overrepresented. I shouldn't say, I guess overrepresented isn't the right word, but people who already feel like they belong everywhere they go, to understand that not everyone has that experience. That is a unique experience to you, and that people who don't feel that way need a safe place to be, and they need to feel welcome, and that's a responsibility as, sometimes the majority to make sure that happens, even if it's means, being uncomfortable and having to confront people who are going to respond to people coming into the community with malice.
Right.
But that's how it is. You have to fight for inclusion. That's just how it is, unfortunately. I hope that everyone is as blessed as I am, that I have a very diverse, diverse like local game store, and that I get to see all kinds of people, and that I hope they all feel welcome there, but I do my best to make sure that's the case.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, to cap this off, if you're like a cis white guy listening to this, and you're like, okay, this makes sense. I don't do any of this bad stuff, but I want to like do more than just not be a dickhead to make people feel inclusive. How do I do that? Just like call people out when they are dickheads, and that's scary. Believe me, it's scary to like go up to a guy and be like, "Hey, chill out." But like doing that will make whoever they're making uncomfortable feel so much safer and more included in that space. And just treat people like how you treat anyone else. Like just like, you know, ask them what their favorite magic card is. Everyone loves talking about their favorite magic card, you know? If you're playing at a pre-release, ask them when they started playing Magic. Just like making like, you know, conversations about things that you would make to everyone else is just a good way to just like make friends with anyone, really. It's not like, oh, I need to talk to women or trans people or people of color differently. It's like, no, you just like treat us like people, you know? Like, if you ask me what my favorite Magic card is, I'm gonna like talk to you about 15 minutes about my 5 favorite Magic cards, because that's just how I'll answer the question, you know? If you ask me what set I started playing in, I'll just rave to you about how awesome I think Khans of Tarkir is.
Right,
and,
you don't need to walk on eggshells, like just be normal.
Yeah. Yeah, and once you like get to know me as a Magic player, you know, like once you know, oh, these are the types of decks I like to play, these are the types of cards I like, these are the types of set I like, these are the, you know, the colors I like, whatever, you know, then it's like, oh, you know, once you know me like as a Magic player, then it's like, okay, what do you do in real life, you know, like what, you know, what's you know, what do you do for a job, what is, I don't know, like what do you do for fun, what are your other hobbies outside of Magic, you know, what are your favorite foods, what are your, you know, favorite music you like to listen to, whatever, just like all sorts of things that you could talk about, make friends with someone after you've like become comfortable talking to them about only Magic.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your favorite color of the alphabet?
That's a great question. That's yeah, just like stuff like that. Like you can get to know them as a Magic player because that's the hobby that you both share. And so you like, you know, if the person you're talking to likes Magic, they'll probably like talking about Magic. And so you two can just talk about Magic and just like be friends, become friends just on the hobby that you share. And then like after like you become Magic friends, then you just like be real life friends. Like, oh, you know, like me and like, you know, me, Jimmy, Mark, and David, we all like to go to Denny's after FNM. Do you want to come join us and play Commander until 4 a.m? Like,
oh, you made me sad. The local Denny's closed, and that was there for my
no!
childhood. Why you do this to me? It doesn't IHOP there now. It's a spiritual successor.
That's the same thing. I would argue that's better. But I specifically call that out because before pandemic, me and my friends, after FNM, we would just go to the local Denny's and play Commander until like 2 a.m. Because they don't have work Saturday. So yeah, there are no consequences to staying up till 3 a.m. on Friday night.
Meanwhile, I just stay up till 3 a.m. every night, so the fact that my LGS has their Commander nights on Wednesdays is of no consequence to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, food's always a good neutral subject to bring into people. And actually, you reminded me that our last conversation was very heavily influenced by the topic of not trying to date every person that comes into the LGS.
Oh my god, yes, I don't know how I have never had this directed towards me, I assume because everyone who goes to my LGS knows I'm a lesbian, and anyone who is newer to my LGS is either way younger than me and obviously doesn't want to date me, or way older than me and doesn't want to date me. So I've never personally dealt with this. But I have seen other women in my store deal with this, and I'm just like, why? Like, what? Why do you think she's here for a date? Why? Like, that's
I can give you an answer to that one. That's okay. The answer from somebody from a more well-intentioned point of view will most likely have a defeatist and or absolutionist, like, I'm not sure how to put this, but like a very all-in kind of thought process on the matter. They'll have this sort of thing where the type of people that they want to meet, they assume, just don't exist outside of the very specific circumstances of interacting in an LGS. So they think that, oh, I have very specific niche interests that are focused in on my particular things that I want to talk about, and I don't really know where or how to go interact with these things. So in other places, maybe I don't have good luck dating online. So even if I can angle it in such a way to where it's not trying to be over the line of creepy, but it's just like very much trying to go and get to know this person as like a introductory kind of thing to the LGS, and there's somebody that I like on a surface level attracted to, and I know for a fact that they have the same interests as me, then maybe like there's some off chance that something gets spawned from there. Like if you're going straight into, hey, can I get your number? Like that I don't necessarily know why they're going like that far in off the deep end. But if we're talking just like, I just want to have the opportunity to meet someone and potentially make something more out of it, and there's people there who are like of my interests, and they have, you know, they catch my eye in some kind of way, then maybe I can try to string something along in there, try to go and make that work. It's something of it's a rock and a hard place, because it's just like, you don't want to necessarily go and like try to go make somebody feel uncomfortable, but on the other hand, somebody in that position may feel like they don't necessarily have another choice in the matter. Like they don't have other places where the people that they're interested in exist at all, so they have to try here, or else like those people just often never see them again. You never really like quote unquote shot your shot.
Right. Yeah, I guess if I were to give advice for those people, hearing that perspective, that makes total sense to me now. Now I definitely understand that. I guess if that's like your mindset, and you want to date someone who is playing Magic because for any of those reasons, right?
Or maybe just like they're using it as like you just think that somebody of like that nerd kind of sphere is kind of like what you're looking for. Like I, for example, not super into anime as like a genre, but some of my exes in the past, which not very many of them to count, but most of them have been super into that sort of thing. And it's just like, it's one of those things where like I know a little bit of and like tangentially into it, like that's sort of like the level of thing that they might be looking for, and they're thinking like that might be a place to look for. For example, that's just another thing you can get from there.
Or maybe like them teaching their partner Magic is like important to them because like, oh, it gives us a shared hobby that we can talk about, or that we can like do as like an activity together. And just like, well, if this person's already a Magic player, then I don't have to teach them Magic. Like if you're someone like that, and you want to date a woman who's like you meet at your LGS, just like be her friend first. Just like be friends with her the same way you would just be like, oh, that guy looks cool, I want to be friends with him. Just do the same thing you do for that guy, you know. Just like talk to her about Magic, you know, like just like get to know her as a Magic player. Maybe invite her with your friends if you go out to, you know, Denny's or whatever after the LGS. You know, invite her to like Commander Night at your friend's house, you know, whatever. Just like hang out with her, be friends with her, and then you know, then after that, like you can like ask her out. And like, to me, it's like if like a guy like becomes close friends with me and then asks me out, like I don't feel like upset that's like, oh, they just wanted to be friends just so they can date me. That's not, I don't find that particularly offensive. It's like, yeah, it's a lot easier to go out on a date with someone that you're friends with rather than someone who's a total stranger. Like, yes, that just makes sense to me. Like, yeah.
I think that one thing that I myself was like, I was speaking a little bit, not too much right now, but there was some of my own personal experience with that explanation there. Like, right now, I'm single, but I'm not really looking for anything right now. I have a bunch of other things I'm working on, so, like, this is more in my more desperate times when I was younger and less, like, sure of what I was looking for. Like, that's kind of where some of my explanation came from. It just... exactly what you described was my last relationship. It was a long-distance thing, but she and I were very much friends before we had anything going on like that. I was very much just, like, trying to go and, like, find the best way to, like, go and try to angle that. Like, we'd been talking for, like, a month and a half, 2 months. We've been playing the same video game together for, like, ever, and, like, there was no intention on my part to even, like, try to voice my opinion at all there for a while. It's like, well, there's no point because she's, like, over in New York, I'm in California, so that, and it's like a whole thing. It's just, and then her best friend is like, okay, I talked to her about something or another in a private conversation, like, trying to get her help with something or other, and I'm like, oh, are you gonna finally ask her out? I'm like, was it that obvious?
Yeah. Yes,
but no,
yes.
But exactly what all that led into before. Like, we were friends before that, and I kind of just let in, like, granted, maybe a little bit more, like, meekly than I intended to, because the whole thing was like, hey, I'm kind of into you. I would kind of like to get to know you better. And if you don't, I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you or anything. Like, just don't worry about it. Never bring it up again. It's like, I didn't need to go and, like, be having the whole disclaimer kind of thing, because it was like, at that point we'd already been friends. So it's just, that's just kind of how that kind of thing would have gone anyway. It's like, hey, I'm kind of into you. You kind of want to do anything like that? Like, obviously put better than that, of course, but...
right,
yeah, that seems fine. And, yeah, we've got to go with it like that. It turns out, the person in front of you is not just what their physical appearance and the most immediate parts of their interests would imply them to be. There's more to it than that. And getting to know them beyond that level is actually going to be helpful if that's something that you're trying to go and facilitate.
Right. Yeah, it's also, like, a lot easier to date someone. Like, it's easier to start dating someone who is already a friend, and it's also easier to continue dating someone if you started out as friends, because you already know a lot about them.
And even if, assuming that, you know, you don't do anything completely awful, and the relationship ends on, like, more amicable terms, it's entirely, like, 99% of the time, I would imagine that even if there's some awkwardness of following a breakup, if that were to occur, you can still be friends. It's almost as if they're a real person in front of you.
Yeah, like, speaking from experience, I am still friends with several of my exes because we were friends before then, and it's like, alright, yeah, sure, let's date. And after, you know, a month or so of that, it's like, okay, this did not work out. Let's just go back to being friends.
Yeah. My last serious relationship that I was in, that's exactly what happened. So I feel that.
Yeah.
The moral of the story being, don't make the LGS be the place where you're engaging with women on that level, or anybody on that level. Always try to make sure that they have a safe space to be. There should never be the expectation that you walk into an LGS and that's the kind of thing you have to deal with.
Right.
And Luda made a great example is, like, invite them to something that's after the event. You know, if they're interested, then they can follow up with you on that, and then you can get to know them. But you don't want them to feel like they can't come back to that LGS because that guy's going to be there who hit on me, and it's awkward and it feels bad. You don't want that to be the case.
Yeah, and especially inviting them to an event with other people is going to make them feel a lot more comfortable, because it's like, oh, okay, this person just wants me to join their friend group, rather than, oh, this guy's, like, just trying to date me immediately.
There was quite literally just a instance of a guy who moved in from someplace in the middle of the country over to here in California where I'm at, and more or less exactly the things that you described about like trying to go and get someone to go and like get to know them like on a personal level well enough to go on a date. So I have no intention of dating him. I don't go in that direction, but everything else that you already described, like I already we had some dinner after an LGS meetup one night. We've gone over to some other towns nearby to go and check out some of like the local places that weren't Magic exclusive. Like there was a retro video game store we went and visited like about a month or so ago, and like he and I are friends. Like this is just something that we would just do. So just the fact that the person you may be into presents as a woman doesn't mean that you have to go and treat them any differently than I treated my friend over here. So it's not that hard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys share that experience of, oh, we share this hobby. Okay, we're just gonna like hang out exclusively in this space of this hobby. Like everything, like our hangouts are gonna be in the context of this hobby. And then, oh, we just learn other hobbies about each other. So we're just gonna hang out in the context of those hobbies. And then through hanging out in the context of all those hobbies, you just then learn about each other as people. Just do that with women. And it'll, like, they're still gonna be down to be your friends, for the most part.
Yeah, there was...
you know, like it.
Go ahead.
And like most of my examples of like, oh, invite them to Commander Night or whatever. Like you don't do that. You can also be like, yeah, me and the boys are gonna go see this next Marvel movie or whatever. Do you want to come? You know, join us for that, or you know, we're gonna go to a fucking football game. I don't know.
We're gonna go play Mario Kart 8 and go get the biggest pizza we can get from Papa Murphy's and go and get some beer go along with it. Let's go.
Right, like, oh my god, if you like say, hey, we're on Saturday, we're just gonna play like stuff 20 people in an apartment room, and we're just gonna play Smash Bros until 4 a.m, and we're just gonna order a shit ton of pizza. And I'd be like, hell yes. Are you kidding me? I'm so down for that. That's a blast.
I'm apparently rude when it comes to playing in Smash because in those kind of contexts, I play as like your heavy hitters like Incineroar and Bowser, and like they just do AoE damage all over the place, and people are like, bro, you're just literally smacking everybody for tons of damage. Come on. Like, what do you want from me? This is I play in 1v1 too. But yeah,
that's how I that's actually how I met my current friend group is in COVID, I joined the local Smash Bros server because I was like, oh, when events go up, I want to maybe play in some Smash Bros tournaments and meet some people. And it's like, okay, if I'm gonna do that, I might as well hang out in their Discord server and maybe meet some online friends. Mm-hmm. And then my friend Josh just posted in the Magic channel, hey, I bought a booster box of Zendikar Rising. Who wants to come over to my apartment and just draft? And I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, hell yeah, I'm just down to do that. And then I did that a bunch of times, and then it turned into, okay, who wants to come to my apartment and play Smash Bros? Like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm down for that. And then, like, I would meet like people in the Smash Bros server who didn't play Magic. And then the main tournament organizer for the scene is a guy named Keith. Every spring, he hosts a gigantic barbecue at his house, and he just invites everyone in the server to his house, and they just play Smash Bros, some other fighting games, sometimes other party games like Mario Kart. Sometimes people play board games or card games inside his house, and he just cooks barbecue food, and it's the best event in the scene. And everyone just goes to it. Like a lot of like the veterans of the scene who have like moved to other towns, they come down for the weekend just to hang out at this event, and it's just an absolute blast. And the very first one I went to was before I even met Keith. Like I had not met him. I'd like interact with him on his Discord server, and I was like, hey, I know we've never met. Is it okay if I come over to your house? Because you've never met me before. And he was just like, oh yeah. Like he was like, oh yeah. I totally expect like everyone in the server to just like, I just assume everyone in the server is just gonna like bring a +1 that I've never met. And I'm cool with that. And I'm like, okay, sweet. and I did that, and I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, I'm Looter Scooter on Discord. My name's Maria," and he goes, "Welcome to the show. Enjoy yourself." And he was awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like about the way you would want to go and handle a situation like that. Just if you're gonna be a host like that, you would think that would kind of be how most people would treat in the first place.
Right, and it's just like yeah, just meeting all my friends through just events like this, and now like most of his friends don't play Smash Bros much. We did it at my friend Charlie's birthday parties. We did a doubles tournament for his birthday, and it was really fun. But other than that, it's like, yeah, we just hang out. We sometimes play Magic, sometimes play other board games, and yeah, it's just a good time. Just, I don't know. It's easy to be friends with someone who shares a hobby with you, is I guess my point. Because you just do that hobby with that friend, with your other friends, and then
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this recording is getting kind of long, and I pay the editor by the hour, so let's wrap things up here. To summarize, women are awesome. Don't be a creep, and just treat people like people.
Yeah.
Make sure you check that one. Yep. Make sure you check the description for Looter's socials. I'm sure you probably have a link tree or something like that we'll be able to link to.
I do. Yeah, I can. Yep.
Yeah, we'll just get that from you. And as always, the voice of the Magic community is on the Hive Mind podcast. Make sure you subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Make sure if you have a good story that you leave it in the comments and make people feel like they belong.